Welcome to the Work Hard, Smile Large podcast, where we shine a spotlight on individuals who are working hard and making a difference in the world. I'm your host and founder, Nicole Christopherson, and in today's episode, I have Russ Laggan joining me in the studio. Russ is the Senior Director of Growth in the U.S. at eXp Realty. His role is to educate, empower, and encourage growth in this global digital brokerage we're both at. He's passionate about teaching, training, and inspiring the professionals who he meets.
One of the things that I love to do when I'm teaching, training, coaching people is I don't want you to be me, but I want you to be the best you. And here's something that you can use to customize to be the best you.
His energy fills every room he enters and is also his superpower for finding the right people and applying his experience to keeping them.
So you've got to find those people in your life that actually see you for who you really are and will celebrate that.
Russ, I think we've seen each other. This will be our fourth time in the last month, but thank you for joining me on my podcast today.
Yeah, I'm sorry we weren't able to do this live face-to-face with scheduling. But like when you asked, I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this. Let's go.
I know there wasn't a single hesitation. It was right after a mastermind that you led for us with a small group while you were here in Austin. So I appreciate you being so open to join me and sharing your journey and your passion with our Work Hard, Smile Large community.
Awesome. Yeah, like the one thing you're going to get with me every single time you come in is that I'm going full throttle every single time. It's kind of funny because every once in a while somebody would be like, is that just a show you put on? Like, no, this is just the way I communicate. Like, You saw me let my hair down at the second conversation when we were in that room with just, there's 10 people in that room. Yeah. You guys got to eat lunch while I talked at you.
Yep. After eating your lunch got cold.
Yes. It's funny until maybe a year ago, somebody said something to me about blah, blah, blah. And then they said, leaders eat last. Have you ever heard that?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was a thing. So I'm like, well, shoot, I've been accidentally doing that. I realized that was a thing, but I always want to make sure everybody in my thing is taken care of. Listen, I'll get McDonald's on the way home if I'm that hungry, I'll eat roadkill. We're fine. I'll get something on the way back. But like being present and showing up was way more important than putting food in my face at that time. And most of the time when we're doing events and things, and we would do potlucks with the old office back in the day, I just make sure everybody's taken care of. And once everybody's taken care of, that's when I feel comfortable to actually sit down and eat. Until then, it's not like, it just doesn't feel right to me. It never has felt right to me. So it is kind of interesting that is a commonality amongst leaders. And I didn't realize that was something that was common until somebody said it out loud. And I was like, I didn't know that was a thing.
Because you're applying it to your business. And that, to me, makes me remember every night when I serve my family dinner, I sit down and eat last. We don't really do family style in the middle of the table and kind of everything all over the place. I serve my family's plates. We put them on the table. And then I sit down last at the table to sit and eat with them. And I'm usually not even hungry by that point. I just want to lick their faces, talk to them.
Wait a second. I got a second. So let's see. While you're cooking, is it a chance that you're actually the first one eating?
100%.
Yeah.
I probably haven't eaten all afternoon and I'm starving by the time I get to cook the meal. So yes, you're right.
I'm not going to out the person, but I will tell you that I watched this in person at a family meal and the guy is cutting the ham and in between every ham, he drop it over onto his hand and set it on the plate. That in and of itself is not the worst thing in the world. The fact that he licked his fingers.
Oh no.
Like, all right, nobody eat the ham.
Yeah. I know.
By the way, he probably wasn't too hungry by the time dinner was served either.
Double dipping the spoon. No, I do get a new spoon every time I sample or fork, every time I'm sampling. But yeah, those are bad habits. But we did. Okay, so let's take it back because you are an energy in a room. You have a lot of knowledge to share. And just it's awesome. But I met you when I first met you. We were in Las Vegas at eXpCon in 2022. And
it wasn't too long after I came back to eXp.
Yeah.
I was drinking out of a fire hose.
I mean, I had only been at eXp maybe 8 months at that time. And it was my first conference. I mean, I've never worked in the corporate world. I've never been at a big conference like that. And we were in the main area of the ballroom things. And there weren't a ton of people there. And not that I was lost, but you're going from room to room and doing stuff. I think I was just regrouping with my team member that was there with me. And you're like, hey, I'm Yes. And just like that is watching this episode, Russ always has a vest on. And at that time or at the conferences, he always had a certain color combination going on. There's a uniform to your personality, and it's just so perfect. But the other funny thing that you brought up this last month is you're like, I also didn't have hair.
True. There's a story behind that if you'd like to know the story. Like, not even want to get that kind of personal, but
let's go. But it's not personal. It was like, I have a picture. I'm actually going to put the picture in the podcast episode in B-roll. So I will add the picture to our episode.
I just watched a video somebody sent to me, and they're like, hey, Russ, is there any way you could remake this video? Because you mentioned your brand, and it was 2 years ago or something like that. And I thought maybe you wouldn't want that to get promoted out. I'm doing this big stuff. And I thought this was a really good testimonial. Could you redo something with that flavor? And I was like, yeah, sure. And of course, like a month later, I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to remember to do that. So I open up the email and I open up the video, and it pops in the video, and it's me with zero hair, right? I was, whoa. I mean, it was one of those things that caught me off guard. So here's how the story goes. I've always had a mane. Like, I've got a full head of hair, right? I've been fighting with this scalp thing. And it's just, part of just being alive. We have weird stuff happen to us. So I had this scalp thing, and my scalp itched nonstop, right? And then they're like, well, do you wear hats too much? I went through everything. And then they're like, well, take this and take that. Let's do an antibacterial thing. And went through everything under the sun, included stop eating anything and everything. Fasted for a long term, to see that it's going. Right? Like, went all in on this because I'm like, this is driving me nuts. We got to find a solution. So I finally, early 2020 hits, January, February, March. By March, I'm sitting there going like, nobody's going anywhere for the next 3 months. So I literally just marched myself into the bathroom, like, peeled it straight off, right? I come back out of the bathroom. My poor wife, she almost broke into tears. She's like, what? Why?
Did the dogs recognize you?
They're like tilting their head. You throw the ball and they just keep running with it. Oh, Lord. But yeah, so it was one of those things. And then, that I started a new role as a vice president of recruiting for another large company, helping them grow from 3 to 8 agents over 24 months. And all of those people only knew me as Russ the Bald Guy. So I come back to EXP as Russ the Bald Guy, and everybody just knows me as Russ the Bald Guy. You want to see people tilt their head. So I started growing my hair back out at EXPCon last year, October. That was the last time I shaved my head. I'm just going to let it grow. I'm not really traveling a bunch, so I can go through that nasty, cute fuzz look, It's I just don't want to look like the dude that does the $5 haircuts on himself guy. Although I do cut my own hair. I don't want to be the guy that looks like I do. So I was like, I'll just suck it up and I'll make it through the holidays, and then I'll have enough where I could do something with it. I started showing up at meetings and people are like, how much did that cost? What are you talking about? And they're like, dude, I just saw you 2 months ago when you had zero hair, and now you've got a full head of hair. That had to cost a ton of money. This is my actual hair. It's not doll hair. It's my real hair. And they're like, seriously? How'd you do that? I just water it every day. Get it wet and it comes back out, right? Stop cutting it. It starts shooting back out of your head. So
you solved the problem. Did you solve it?
No.
Okay. Well,
so right now my head itches.
Crazy. Well,
so we have this. It's just at some point it just gets too much. But now that I've grown it back, my wife is going to fight me. I think she might smother me with a pillow if I shave my head again. Look mean. Look at him. That's what people all the time, and they don't know you're joking. And when you had no hair, it looked like you were really, really serious.
It's a totally different look because you normally think the person's bald and you're doing it for different reasons, but it is a totally different look when somebody does not have hair on their head. But let's talk about the confidence it took for you to be able to do that. And not everybody, male or female, would choose to just straight up shave their head. It was in a time where you weren't seeing a lot of people, but I'm sure you were on camera quite a bit and stuff like that. And so that's a confidence thing. And
you don't realize how much your identity is tied to a lot of different things. This is my flavor, this is my style, this is my feel. And, I was kind of getting away from it a little bit because I do feel very overdressed a lot of times. But the way
better to be overdressed than underdressed is my motto.
No arguments there. So when I roll around at the big conferences and stuff and people are like, you've got some crazy clothes, and I just kind of have my feel and my flavor, right? So we were at an event and I saw Tony Robbins. First time I ever seen him. I never really listened to him a whole lot. I'm not a big fan. I'm a half a spaz. I'm a little bit wound up, right? A little excitable. So when you see Tony Robbins doing his thing, he's like, let's get in the state. Yes. Yes. And I'm standing there going, no, don't make me do this. Like, don't tell me to jump up and down. I'm like, that's not me. It's not the way I roll. I'm naturally this, right? So I don't need to do the windup. But one of the things that he said was super interesting. And for a lot of people, they need that. They need to understand that they can control that. So for me, when I go on, I'm on, right? When I'm dressed like this is Russ doing the Russ thing, right? This is a brand, really. And it was interesting because Tony Robbins was talking about it like this. He's like, you got to have a flavor. You got to have a style. You got to have a feel. You got to have a brand. And then like when you find that brand, like, don't leave it. Stick with it. Because people go from style to style to style to style to style with business and personal. And then nobody really knows who they are. But like, it was funny because then it was like, okay, well, now I got to just double down on this, right? People have joked with me all the time. Like, how many vests do you have? And I'm like, a couple, dozen. So, but it was a matter of like, you start to have that, this becomes part of the character and is the brand. And brand is really just being a character. It's no different than being an actor, really, in a lot of ways. Now, people have said more than once, like, how does your wife put up with you? She's going to get Russ on stage. She gets Russ the Culver. She gets me after I'm worn out. Like, do you have a dog?
We just got a dog in November.
Okay.
So I do.
Yeah. So my neighbors across the street have a lab. Right. And that lab is awesome after it's gone for a 2-hour walk. You run that dog on a treadmill, probably perfect to get it to the right speed. Right now, of course, now she's gotten a little bit older, but that's kind of like me. This is me on a treadmill. When I get done off the treadmill, Russ is the perfect speed. I don't wag my tail as much. I'm more calm. I'll lay down, sit still, be a good boy. I'm just basically a Labrador retriever.
But it's such a good conversation to have for people who are like young entrepreneurs or whatnot. And I think it was something that I dealt with at the beginning of my real estate career as a former elementary school educator. Like the uniform was different from one role or hat to the other. And it was like, I didn't know how to dress in the professional world and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I was creating these outfits and it's like, then you run into somebody and you're not in work mode and you're in a different mode. And it took me a few years to be like, I just need to be myself. Like, I don't need to dress different for work than I do, whatever. If they run into me in my workout clothes, they know I like to work out. That's fine too. But I'm not going to have the blazer that everybody takes their first real estate picture in. And I'm not going to make that who I am because that's not who I am from day to day. I want to be able to be myself and be authentic all the time. And it did take a few years. I'm honest. But once I had that idea in my head or I realized that, I got so much more comfortable in my career.
Yeah, be you, right? People will say, well, how you dress for work, but how you come across and how people know you and what they know you for, right? I mean, I know plenty of guys that have a t-shirt with the flat brim hat cocked off to the side a little bit. Hell, I'd love to pull that off. It'd be way easier. Save me on hair gel, right?
I get ready every day for work. I don't work in my workout clothes and I work in my pajamas. I get ready every day when I'm performing for myself, right? Like every day.
There's a certain ritual to getting ready and there's a certain ritual to throwing this on. I mean, it's kind of funny. When I'm dressed like this, I feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right? When I walk through a room, I feel confident. I feel like myself. It's weird that maybe this isn't, I'm complete disparity between here. Like I will take this off, dirty t-shirt covered with sawdust into my workshop, forging knives and stuff. Like I go from dressed like this to complete dump slob in the span of like 30 seconds. And I drop down into my workshop and people see me. My wife's like, you can't go to Home Depot. Like why do I give a crap? Who cares what Home Depot people think of me? But there's been many, many people that have joked. And then of course I took it way too far that Russ probably wears a vest everywhere. And they're like, do you wear a vest to sleep? I'm like, no, I don't wear a vest to sleep. I mean, I might have a pajama vest, but I'm not showing it to anybody. So I actually jumped in the pool dressed like this at one of the big events. I was floating around the lazy river dressed like this and doing selfie videos. I did one.
If our listeners are listening to this episode, you might have to go to the YouTube channel and watch this episode because it is true. Like tried and true. When Russ is in the room and Russ will go with the flow at all times. It impacts the most powerful messages and experience. So we're going to jump into all of that too.
I think, you talk about mantras, right? You ask people, you ask everybody what their mantra is, right?
I do, because I think it's really cool to share it and to hear it. And it's powerful. We all have our own.
So one of my mantras would be probably the one I live the most that I kind of look back at and say, this is kind of what I would feel. I could say, this is me, really me. When you put it to words, is like how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? It's kind of the way I roll. So like when you see me doing my thing, doing my stuff live, I'm full throttle, full contact, right? If you see me doing other things in my life, I raced a couple of triathlons, I am full throttle, full contact. I am the guy that threw up at every race because that's how you know you went all in. right? If you didn't, like you had more in the tank, right?
Yeah.
There was way, like I got done and I was done. And I wasn't always the fastest, by the way. There were plenty of people that are faster than me, but I gave everything I had that day and left
And
nothing.
it takes a certain type of person to do a triathlon. Like I have no desire to ever do one. Like that is too much running. It's too much running for me. I probably will not do one unless it's motivated by something else, but that takes a unique person. But I really believe that mantra is amazing.
I don't advise it.
Yeah,
I don't. Look, I mean, the sheer amount of time, energy, and effort it takes at that point in my life, it was important for me because, obviously I need to get my energy. Again, I got to get my energy out. If I don't, I go crazy, right? So being physical and moving is important to me. And it also gives me that calm space. So it's interesting that I would find that when I was riding 22 and 23 miles an hour on a bike with 40 people around me when we were training, that was my quiet space.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, Russ, how could that possibly be your quiet space? There's a certain thing to finding a rhythm and finding the rhythm of your body. And a lot of people don't take the time to actually find the rhythm of their body. And that's why I say how you do anything is how you do everything. It's like, I want to do everything at a high level, but I'm also willing to suck. That's the hardest part. A lot of people are like, Russ, I'd love to do that.
The most from our mistakes and our challenges.
Nobody started a master at anything, right? And being willing to go through the crappy part to get to the good part and not just saying like, okay, good enough. Okay, close enough. It's getting to the point where you're saying, okay, that is a level of mastery. So for me, communication, it's accidentally become, not intentionally, but accidentally become something that I'm known for. Communicating in an interesting, more unique way. I tend to make a lot of complicated things simple, and it better be freaking funny, because if I'm not entertained, I don't want to be bored. Good
That
Lord.
is your master. I mean, that is your skill. Like you take very complicated things that people overcomplicate our topic is always our industry, and you simplify it because it truly is that simple.
Well, so when I say how you do anything is how you do everything, I carry that over to my relationship with my wife. So I've been married 30 years in August.
Yay. That's a big accomplishment.
Like
That's love.
With me that long, I can't believe she did it. I'm really not that complicated. I'm actually pretty easy for the most part. And you start to go like, okay, you see people put everything into work, right? I saw my dad. My dad put everything into work, right? He had 4 kids under the age of 5 at one point, like all 4 kids within 5 years. He was 22 when he had his first one. My mom was 18, graduated high school, pregnant. This is a couple of years ago.
That was a trend then, wasn't it? No.
It was not acceptable, but it was not like today, right? Like today is freaking taboo. 22-year-old gets an 18-year-old pregnant, there's jail time, right? So my mom graduated high school pregnant. My parents got married, had my brother Dan, and then 15 months later had me. And then 15 months later had my brother Mike. And then 24 months later had my brother Chuck. She got 4 little boys within 5 years. And my dad's 20, at that point, 26, right? So he was head down working. And now in hindsight, I see it better. At that time, it's like, Dad's hardly ever home. If he's not home, we were at the church, right? So it was pretty much, we saw Dad for dinner sometimes, or we saw him driving us back and forth to church, and he's very, very involved in the church, and then he's a deacon in the church and stuff. And that was the whole life, so like work-life balance, like what life, right? So no judgment to him. And we've had some conversations around this, and that generation, you don't really talk about it type of generation, but there's conversations that you start to see. It's like, there's 2 things. You can either become that person or you can become very different than that person. So how present are you? So I would rather have you undivided attention, present like we're at right now, than have you standing around in the car. It's like, mom's there. She's over there. She's on her phone, farting around on your computer. Like, how often do you get fully present?
I put my devices away. And when I don't, I get reminded that I'm being extremely rude, but I'm home every day at 3:30 when my daughter gets off the bus. And if I'm not home, my husband's there, because we have spent countless time, like when they were being raised, with nannies in the house helping us so we could build to where we're at. So there were ebbs and flows in the start of our careers. But what we realized looking back, and I think that's what success is we realized that we're not getting that time back.
Right. Well, I think
our success is making time to be with them, and we work even harder, you know what I mean, to get to that time, and so that's huge. Being present is huge. I cook. My kids are in the kitchen when I'm cooking. Yeah. I try not to be on my phone. It's a constant effort. Yeah.
So I think the challenge is a lot of people say, well, Russ, how do you do it? Like, number one, you've got to be intentional, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be intentional, and you got to figure out what's important to you. I would say that probably when I'm teaching, training, coaching, growing people, growing companies, growing businesses, growing real estate offices, growing brokerages, you'll find almost all the time, how I do anything is how I do everything. It's like, get really clear on what people want. It's like, I get really clear on what I want, and then I drive after that. You've got to get really clear on what you want. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What do you want it to sound like, smell like? What do you want to be known for? People have these lives and they're specifically in charge of that, right? They're just it's just life is happening to them versus them crafting and creating a life. So I look at almost everything like a craftsman. So you may have heard I have a couple of hobbies of things. I make things with my hands, which is why I'm fiddling with my hands a lot of times. Very rarely will you see me without something in my hand. So I do a lot of woodworking and I also forge knives and so forth. I've done a bunch of different things with that. And it's interesting because as a craftsman, if I just grab a piece of wood and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wing it. No, really, no. You have to have a plan. It's like, what are you trying to go at? So the more clear I can get on what I'm trying to create, the more likely I am to be able to actually have that. And a lot of people never sit down and get really clear. Do you want to have an environment where you are connected every evening? Listen, that doesn't have to be you, right? My wife and I, we've got a very strange relationship in a lot of ways. By 8 o'clock or so, I go off in my own corner, do my own thing, right? So she's not at 8 o'clock, she's got her routine and things she likes to do. So that time between getting off my last Zoom, getting off my last meeting, getting off my last podcast, that time between is am I fully present? Does she feel like she is noticed? Does she feel like she's safe? Does she feel like she's seen? Does she feel like she's heard? The key to a good relationship isn't all the stuff, right? It's the fact that it's all the stuff you can't buy that really makes a good relationship. It's the sense that somebody is important, the sense that somebody is seen, the sense that no matter what, you're my person, right? That's the good stuff, right? All the other stuff gets in the way of it. I would say stuff gets in the way of slowing that down. Experiences are everything, right? So I've been asked way more than once, where does that come from? And that comes from the fact that my wife and I got married. She half stood and half sat on a stool because she was starting to have problems with one of her legs, not working correctly. And then we went to our honeymoon. We took a honeymoon, went south, and we went to Busch Gardens. We were young. We were 22. Busch Gardens 30 years ago, and pushed her around in a wheelchair because that was what we could do at the time, right? And it's you start seeing the limitations of what you can do and she could do physically and start to say, well, this is a real challenge. And it is, right? She's not able to work and having children was not an option really because she just physically was having enough trouble taking care of herself. But it's how do you build a life intentionally? And there's way more than once people you must be a saint. And I'm like, not at all. I made a choice and I'm doing the things that follow up with that choice. It's it has nothing to do with, I don't leave it to chance. I've engineered this. We're going to figure it out, right? So we don't go to movies because she can't sit that long. You don't go to dinner because she can't sit that long. You don't go to the parties and then, go out to the clubs and things like that. When we were younger, we'd go to the park. And then when we moved to Florida, we'd go sit by the beach, right? So
yes.
It doesn't matter what's going on. You got to find the things that you can do and be focused on the things that you can do. And it translates directly over into business.
Yes.
Same exact thing. Are you focused on what you can do? Are you focused on what you want to do? Are you focused on the direction you're trying to go? Are you focused on what happened?
And it evolves. It's a constant evolution too.
Yes.
If you stick to those basic principles, it's very true.
Yes. And just like anything else, as a craftsman, my skill set gets better. And as my skill set gets better as a craftsman, my ability to build things gets better. And then next thing you know, you're building all kinds of crazy stuff and people oh my gosh, how do you learn that? Well, 25 years of learning stupid little things. Oh yeah, by the way, I can show you a whole pile of stuff on my wall in my shop. I've got a broken wall of knives that I forged at some point or another. They just shattered, right? 10 hours in that and it's 14 pieces now. So I put those on the wall and people are well, why would you? That's a reminder to me to make sure I'm dotting the I's and crossing the T's because 15, 20 degrees difference in a forge, 15 to 20 degrees difference in a heat treat can make all the difference in the world between it breaking and not breaking. You're changing the molecular structure of steel, for God's sakes. It can be a little bit temperamental, right? And all of those things in life become things that you learn a little bit from. I've learned way more from my mistakes.
Yes.
I think probably if there's any one thing I wish I could change in myself, it would be to not beat myself up.
We're our biggest critics. And I feel the same way, what more can I do? And I don't know if it comes to I think it's just human nature because we are definitely living in a hyper competitive world. And now we have the media and social media in front of us so much, but we are our own worst critics. But I also am I doing enough? I'm always am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? And I know I'm doing enough. But that's, the pressure.
You've got to put yourself in an environment where you create an environment where you surround yourself with people that are not afraid to tell you the truth. Also, not afraid to tell you when you're doing good.
Yeah.
I get random people and it's so for me, I know this is a feedback loop, right? How do you know you're doing the right stuff? People are going to be telling you. If nobody's telling you, that was awesome. That was great. Good job. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That hit home. That worked for me. I love that recipe. I can use that recipe. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to run that. We talked about that later. Those are the types of things and feedback that I get in my feedback loops now, way more, of course, because I've surrounded myself with people that appreciate what we do, right? Listen, I'm not normal. Okay. I'm not. I know. I'm a little bit on the weird side. Okay. I'm a lot on the weird side. Okay. But when you look at like the person that I directly work for is Michael Valdez, and Michael Valdez could not possibly have ever been more clear with me than he has 3 or 4 times in the last 4, 5, 6 months. Tells me exactly what he thinks. And the fact that he's like, I love that you're you. Keep doing what you do. And it empowers you to be the best you. So you've got to find those people in your life that actually see you for who you really are and will celebrate that. Not try to make me into you, but help me be the best me. So I think it's like one of the things that I love to do when I'm teaching, training, coaching people is I don't want you to be me, but I want you to be the best you. And here's something that you can use to customize to be the best you. And I think it's more well received because I'm not telling people what to do. I'm showing them how to be a better them.
Uh-huh.
That's the fun part of what I get to do.
100%. And I think that once you're able to do that, I mean, that's what Work Hard, Smile Large has been for me. It's not, it's not like I decided to start Work Hard, Smile Large and be a realtor on a podcast or do anything like that. This is really me.
Well, and here's the thing. You're intentionally putting yourself in a position where you can connect with people that can help support that and support you and show you the love and communicate with you. And you're meeting in a spirit of growth.
This is what community means to me. And what I do and my purpose sitting here as this podcast host is the same exact purpose I have with every client I help with their home. And I have the same passion in each of them, and they kind of go hand in hand because it's authentic to who I am. Connecting community.
Creating a sense of community starts with connection, right? Mm-hmm. And hey, listen, there's some connections you make and you're like, man, that's so good. There are times when I order something and I'm like, that wasn't so good. And there's other times you order something, you're like, wow, that was really good. That was better than I expected. First time I had a Pittsburgh cooked tomahawk ribeye steak.
That's a tongue twister.
I was like, I'm sitting at dinner next to, actually, it was what Michael Valdez introduced me to it. I'm sitting there next to it. And they put this thing on the table and I'm like, all right, I'm like, wow. That's awesome. Like Fred Flintstone's going to pop out of here somewhere and grab that thing by the bone.
Big, huge tomahawk bone. I know.
You could club a human with it and knock him out, right? And it's like, I would like to repeat that. And then there's other times you're like, yeah, this isn't so great. But the key is not judging any of it. It's like, thank you for the learning experience, right? And we can intentionally build that sense of community around us. Like, you're part of my community now. Part of the reason I ended up meeting you again is Elizabeth Riley. She's a community builder. Right. And because she did that, then you and I connected. So now we're back to being part of our community. Right. And I want to intentionally surround myself with people that are helping me move the ball. Some people are doing it because I'm seeing how not to do it. And some people are doing it because I'm seeing, hey, that's a really good example. I'd like to follow that, do that, learn that. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun.
You and I have both been doing this long enough. I've been in real estate for 21 years now.
Yeah. I started in 05.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty close to the same veteran, and it's just like we've evolved through our industry, right? And so maybe that evolution's just gotten us here. Maybe our industry's just gotten here and chilled out a little bit than the way it was 20 years ago. But, we didn't get to where we are without surrounding ourselves with the right people or doing good business.
You started at the bottom just like I did, and you got to work your way up. Like, this is part of I know this is a podcast, but on this drawing on my wall here, I've got this person standing at the bottom of a hill, a little stick figure, and that's 0-0, right? Everybody starts with zero experience with $0 doing it. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are and what your experience was and everything that happened before. You start this business at 0-0. That's great. So it's on you to figure out what you want to do with those zeros, right? Are you going to turn them into something that's not zero? One of them, for a lot of people, stays zero for a long time. It's painful, right? So I started as a real estate agent. I had sold a concrete countertop company that I built from scratch in 99. Talking about learning something the hard way. Good
From
Lord.
Concrete to real estate contracts.
Yeah. So I'd come out of the kitchen bath industry. So I was a hairstylist in my early 20s. Hence the hair thing. Right. So I know.
There's the secret. He shared his secret. He was a hairstylist.
Hairstylist in my early 20s. Yeah. So, and funny enough, I will still say this, and I paid for this way more than once. My favorite thing in the world was to do updos for weddings. I just really got a kick out of it.
There you go.
Whatever it is.
Right? Done. We're done with the podcast episode. Thank you, Russ, for joining me.
All right. Well, you finally got one good. Yeah. So I went from that to I got allergic to the chemicals, couldn't do that business anymore. I probably would have owned a salon at some point, and blah, blah, blah. It was an interesting industry. And I got super allergic to chemicals, had to stop doing it. I'm like, now what do I do? Like, I've got to reinvent myself and and now what? So a buddy of mine was in kitchen bath design, project management. I had done a couple of house remodels, remodeling my own stuff, and mainly because I was too broke to actually pay somebody. So I had to learn how to do stuff because I was literally too broke to pay somebody else to do it. So if you wanted to do something with the kitchen, guess what? We'll figure it out, right? So figured it out. And so I got in kitchen bath design and helped him build those projects. And I realized, we're making Ken rich. I love Ken. Ken's great. But me and Mike are making Ken rich. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. So Mike resigns from the job. And I'm like, you suck. Because I told him I'm going to start my own company doing countertops out of concrete. I saw a picture in a magazine. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. So I spent like 2 months fiddle farting around with it, figured out something that made sense. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. He's like, no, I quit yesterday. Come on, man. Like when he quit, it was bad. When I quit, I was a monster because I left him with nobody. I can't stay there just because Mike quit. So I resigned. So he went from having 2 great salespeople up there killing it and doing a bunch of business for him to having to do all of it himself again. And it kind of sucks. And now as an owner, I look back, I go like, that sucks, but you can't hold yourself back from following your dreams because of what it does to other people. Obviously, you don't want to intentionally harm anybody.
No.
But if I had stayed there for 4 or 5 more years, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. So I started the concrete countertop company, and then next thing you know, 4 years rolls by. The real estate industry in Michigan was getting hit hard. And I'm like, I either got to double down on this or go somewhere warmer. Had the health issues and muscle issues. We thought being in a warmer environment would be better for her. So we looked at either moving to Austin, Texas, where you're sitting, or Tampa, Florida. We've gone through a bunch of different places, checked them out, and those 2 were the top contenders. And turned out going to Tampa, Florida, because my wife's cousin Rob lived there, and he was in the real estate business. So I ended up stopping stopped doing the countertop company, and then learned valuable lessons on how not to sell a business. Painful, expensive lessons on how not to sell a business and how not to build a business, by the way. And then, Rob's in town for a birthday, graduation thing. And he does something like this. He's like, Ross, you should get in the real estate business. Man, like, you're getting licensed as an agent. You should come down to Tampa. An idiot can make $100,000 a year in Tampa. And I'm like, I'm the biggest idiot I know. Let's do this. Like, I'm perfectly cut out for this.
In common too, we weren't like, hey, I'm going to get into real estate. Somebody advised that we get into real estate. And that's how we both ended up here.
Yes. And then the thing for me, my brother Dan, I have an older brother, Dan, he owns a architectural firm in Orlando. He's got 3 business partners and they own a big architectural firm in Orlando now. And he worked his way up through and he's like, dude, if you just stayed in the same business for 5 minutes, you'd take over. Like, shut up. Because you're just bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And I think,
but that's what you do in your 20s. That's you figure out what you want to do in your 20s and you apply it the rest of your life. I mean, some people, I think.
Well, you could try stuff, right? Don't be afraid to try something. Don't be afraid to fail at something for a little while. If you try something once and it doesn't work and you don't like it, that doesn't mean you don't like it. You didn't like it that time, right? If you do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you're like, yeah, I still don't like this. Maybe it's not for you, right? Or maybe you're not around the right people that can show you how to accelerate through that process. So that's not a dogfight. I mean, that's for me. I wish I had me when I was starting out because I would have shortcut a bunch of that crap.
That's exactly what I tell the people on my team or anybody that I'm mentoring. When I sit on the panels and talk to people, I'm like, if I can bridge that gap of the first 6 years of my career, I want to help you.
Yeah.
And it all starts with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll help you any way I can. And that's what I help my team members with. So I agree with you 100% around the people.
So here's a real estate screw up and tell me if you did this.
I'll be honest.
I got successfully as a real estate agent. I thought, well, I should get into management or leadership.
I got successful. I learned how to do real estate really well from a broker associate who is super knowledgeable, by the book, does everything by the book, crosses T's, dots his I's. So I learned how to do really good business contract wise.
Good.
And then I started leveraging technology as our third party aggregates rolled out and reviews rolled out. And I started doubling my business every year. And so that's when No. That's when I went on my own.
Oh, you did? No kidding.
I went on my own, started my brokerage, didn't intend on growing a team, just decided, hey, I'm building everybody else's business. I'm doing this. My income's doubling every year. My clients trust me. I got the advice of my clients. Would you work with me? Absolutely. We hire you. We don't hire your brokerage.
So interestingly enough, there's I spend a lot of time in my personal role now talking with brokerages and teams, a lot of brokerages and large teams talking about moving and are we a good fit for them? And what do they, and I always go what do you like to do? What do you want to do? What do you want this to look like? And a lot of times they don't know. right? So I'm like having this conversation, coaching them to figure out what they like. Well, do you want more freedom? Do you want to build a legacy? Do you like, that's why I've got the curve with like, if I can figure out where they are on the curve now, then I can automatically tell you what the next thing that will excite them will be. And I learned that the hard way too. So most people get into the real estate business, they're successful as an agent and they're like, well, I need to start a team because that's the next level. And then they start a team and what happens is they're actually working more hours and making less dollars running a team than they were as an individual agent. So I get people all the time now and I look at them and I'll say, straight up truth. If you could slam this into a brick wall, light it on fire, walk away, go back to just being a single agent, you'd work less hours and make more money. And they all go, yes, yes. So it's a matter of learning how to build it the right way so that's not the actual case. Because nobody says, I want to work more to make more. Not generally. They want to work less and make more, ideally, right? So like you would say, if I could show you how to make that amount of money in 20 hours a week instead of 40, would you like to talk about that? Like, heck yes, I would, right? Of course they would. It's like, now you got to start getting really close. So can we build recipes to do that? Yes, absolutely. So what happens is we get these teams, and these teams are successful and they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they think the next evolution for them is, I need to be a broker and own my own thing. And what happens is they realize they're like, I'm going from my company because I want to have freedom. Like, I want to have freedom to have my own thing and have my own brand. And I'm like, you have the freedom to fly around in the gilded cage that you built for yourself. So instead of being in somebody else's cage, you're inside your own cage. And by the way, the more people you get, the more bars you get on the cage. And they're like, oh my God, that's so true. And that's the experience for a lot of people.
But don't learn from my mistakes. Like it took me 2 years to learn how to run my real estate brokerage business accurately.
Yes.
Accurately with least amount of stress, with the best systems in place to be able to provide the best service to my clients. And it took me 2 years, but I didn't go to business school. I went to school to be an educator. Like, so I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs. No one came in and told me how to start a brokerage. So I'm glad I figured it out. I'm glad I did it right. I'm glad I had that experience, but would I repeat it? No. And this day right now, we're in March of 2000.
Would you have a brokerage right now?
I would not want to be a broker owner currently because I know the power of my internal network, my collaboration, the people I surround myself with, and being a broker owner, just like being a leader at the top anywhere, it can be really lonely, especially in an evolution or an industry that's constantly evolving. And so, I mean, I was on the board. I was the chairman of the political affairs committee, governing political affairs committee. I'm still great friends with the CEO of our board of realtors in Newport Beach. I always had a great network of people, but it's a different type of lonely when you're running your own brokerage. No one talks about their business. You know what I mean? It's not like broker owners meet and collaborate and talk. And so it's amazing to be in the position I am because I'm still able to be in a leadership role and share my knowledge and not have those responsibilities weigh on me because I always want to be a good person. I want to follow the law. I want to be in compliance. And so I'm going back in and checking stuff at night. And so, yes, I really appreciate not having to do that and having the team that we have at EXP Corporate to and for the broker teams and stuff to help us.
Yeah. One of my roles with a previous brokerage was managing 28 offices. By the way, one of them was in Long Beach, not too far down the street from you.
So I have a buyer that's just starting to look in Long Beach. Just got pre-approved yesterday.
Maria, if you'd like.
My dad's family, my family's business has been in Long Beach for decades.
So one of the things I learned is a lot of people that are in leadership are accidentally in leadership, not intentionally in leadership, which is leaders get created kind of by push and by force and by shove. And a lot of people don't realize that they have to start making choices. And you get that brokerage and you get that ownership. And there's a certain amount of isolation that comes along with being at the top. They will say, leaders, it's lonely at the top. It certainly can be. And particularly for real estate brokerages, there's a lot of other businesses and industries where they have a lot better collaboration.
I agree.
At the top, where you can get people together and they're not trying to kill each other and run each other over or get business from each other or steal business from each other. So you have to go completely out of your market to be able to connect with anybody that's even similar to what you're doing. And it makes it really challenging on a day-to-day basis. So you know how there's the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And the problem is the further you go in the real estate business, the less together you are, the more alone you are. And you have to find ways of intentionally building people in your life. Then, of course, you don't have time for that either. So how do you get really clear on what you want your life to look like? When we're talking to brokerages that are saying, hey, I can't keep doing this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. The more people I got, the less I get to do what I love. I say, okay, so if you double your people, you're going to spend some of your time doing the things you don't love. Because you're going to have to be dealing with compliance and training and teaching and then doing, and not that's bad, but you're going to have to deal with the bookkeeping. You're going to have to deal with checks and you have to deal with ethics issues. All of that's
farther away from what your true goal was, right?
Yeah. So when you ask them, like, what do you love to do? And they're like, I love to teach people, train people, coach people, grow people, love people, help other people be successful. Brilliant. Well, if you can still do that and have true freedom and build your legacy and not have all the other responsibilities and have to do all the other stuff, would you like to see how to do that? Nicole, they go like, heck yeah, I'd love to see that. I think that's why we're moving so many of them into our brokerage, because we're basically providing a platform where people can do the part that they love. And then the back end part that most of them don't love is handled for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still have your flavor, your style, your feel, and you don't have to do all the rest of the BS that you don't love.
Exactly.
That's a win.
Exactly. And I've experienced it firsthand. So I just hit my 2nd year. So I'm working into my 3rd year. My anniversary date just hit this month. And I think about that anytime I have a question and like I have a collaborative broker working with me in less than 90 seconds.
Yes.
Isn't
it right?
It's just, you can't explain it. I've been in a brokerage office before when you're like, oh, are they in the office right now? Is there an opening in their calendar? Oh, they're not in today. Oh, they're out. Oh, their secretary can't answer this. And do I call the Association of Realtors hotline to try and get this answered? Because I really need some feedback. And it's just, that alone is monumental in my production with my clients and my files, when needed.
The art of sales is interesting because a lot of times people will say like, well, hey, Russ, sell me this. You're trying to sell this little widget and all the bells and whistles and features and benefits. When we're looking at a lot of the owners and brokers, how would it feel if you weren't alone anymore? How would it feel if it wasn't all on your shoulders? And you can see some of them just lean in. So like, that's possible. I didn't know that was possible. So let me show you how to get that, right? It has nothing to do with the thing, right? It's like, how would that feel if you weren't alone anymore? How would it feel if you had dozens of people to collaborate with? You didn't have to figure everything else on your own. You had other people that could work with you and support you and encourage you and collaborate with you.
And you don't have to find third parties to educate and train your teams and your agents and stuff. Like I can plug in whatever somebody on my team needs in their business, because I have them all look at their business like their business. I don't look at them like I'm feeding them and they're part of my, you know what I mean? Like we're a team. And so they can plug into what they need for their business and for their goals in all the education and stuff. And it doesn't have to be recreated. We are all like tied into one big university almost, is what I would say.
There's a lot of shifts in the industry right now. We'll look back at this video from 10 years from now. You'll be like, you remember that was right at the beginning of that thing with the NAR lawsuit? Everybody's upside down and everybody's lost. And people are
you say that. I just wrote my newsletter and I'm like, one of my like quoted talk, I was like, remember when? We've heard this so many times. Remember when?
Now is one of those remember when moments, right? And I think as an industry, we need to shift, and the conversation needs to shift from, my name is Russ, I'm a real estate agent. My job is to help you sell your house, to help you buy a house. Getting into the why you're buying a house is way more important now. And then helping them understand exactly what you're going to do, what I'm going to do, and what they're going to do. I mean, really, the nature of this whole issue is that most people outside the industry don't really know what we do. We've done a shit job of communicating it. Okay. So
and the media's done a shit job of explaining or understanding what we do either, because it doesn't get ratings.
Yes. And it's been mischaracterized. It's mind-boggling watching some of the things people are spitting out of their face. And you couldn't tell me you don't have any idea what we really do more than listening to that, right? So getting really clear on what you do. So like right now, if you say business, shift your business right now, I'm going to get super clear on exactly what I do and exactly how I do it. I'm going to have a list. I'm going to have a checklist. And then I get really good at explaining it simple so that people find out that my job is to help them get what they want. My job isn't to help them get a house. My job is to help them get what they want. And what do they want? We need more space for the dog. We need more space for the kids. We need more space for our toys. We don't want to be with neighbors sitting on top of us. Tired of listening to the neighbors scream. All of those things that go along with it. It's all of the things that does by doing that and making that move. That's the stuff we got to focus on. Okay, so if you want that, here's how I'm going to help you get what you want. Instead of me saying, I'm a real estate agent, let me tell you all the great things I do. Here's a list of all the great things I do. Well, I'm tall and I'm pretty and I dress nice and I've got great signs. I got great brand. Nobody wants to hear that crap, guys. So we've got to get into, it's like, okay, tell me what you want. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve here? How's it going to feel when you get that? If you can get into that with a customer and say, okay, based on that, let me show you what I do to help you get that. Now you've got value because you're making it about them and you're helping them get what they want. You're not just a menu. They're going to be an a la carte menu, Nicole. They're going to pick a la carte what they do. You tell me what you want and I'll show you how to get there.
Yep.
It's like when you call me and say, Russ, I want you to build me a bass guitar. Great. What do you want that bass guitar to do?
Oh, you build guitars too? Oh no, you should not have said that. You have like 4 guitars hanging in my gym because my husband plays and my daughter's teaching herself how.
Yeah. So a couple of interesting things. Okay. So let's go down this rabbit hole for a second.
I know.
2 things. I've built probably somewhere in the range of 70 or so electric bass guitars. One of my earlier guitars was played in the soundtrack of Terminator movie.
Amazing.
By a guy named Edgardo Simone. You can Google it. Edgardo Simone worked for Danny Elfman. And he called me up and he's like, hey, by the way, I just played your bass in the soundtrack for that. So I was like, you're going to put me in the cover so I get royalties? He's like, no, I just wanted you to know. I was like, thanks, Edgardo. That's really nice of you, right? So I built a number of electric bass guitars for high-level professional people. Again, how you do anything is how you do everything. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to build something interesting. So I had some fun with that. I've never wanted to do it professionally. I do it for fun. I'm kind of like Bigfoot of bass building. You might have heard of me. You might see a glimpse of me, but you're not going to actually put your eyeballs on me. Most of the time when people find me, it's like, how did you know I'm here? Well, so-and-so told me where to find you. So I do what I want because I do it for fun. I built couple a year and I do things that are interesting to me most of the time. And I typically can get people convinced to let me do things that are interesting for them. And then, by the way, during that time period when I shaved my head, I decided to build lumber yards were closed. So I was like, all right, well, what do I have laying around? Well, I have this piece of wood here and this piece of wood, and I've got a cigar box for here and I got that cigar box. So I built a cigar box ukulele acoustic, which is kind of interesting. And then I built an electric cigar box ukulele, which is never heard of anything like that.
No.
It was interesting. And then you'll see these people with these cigar box guitars that are kind of like hillbilly crap. So I made a cigar box / Les Paul style. And then actually this sits next to me all the time. I'm going to pull this out. Like, don't die.
Let's see it.
This is my electric upright.
That's amazing.
So this is my electric upright. So then I hand carved the little scroll and it's a joke because it looks like a cinnamon bun on purpose, right? And it's just all interesting, weird pieces. And so I've got the cigar box body. And then if you look at the woodwork in the additional pieces, these are all hand wood pieces, right? Hand carved, hand shaped. The tail piece, one of a kind. And of course, it's got to have a leg. So you got to have it stand on a leg. And then this is where this will prove to you that there's something wrong on a bunch of levels, okay? You need a foot to stand on, right?
Oh, yeah. You took it there. You went there.
All the way. And this is electric and fretted upright. And they're like, nobody does fretted uprights. I'm like, I've never seen one. So why not? So built something nobody's ever seen before. But why not? It's that wonder. It's like, why not try it, right? Turns out it actually plays well. It turns out it actually sounds good because there's basic formula to building all this stuff. As long as you know the basic metrics and you know the basic math equation, every length divided by 17 gives you fret positions. It's just basic math. Once you know that, and then you build a structure, you can literally build anything as a stringed instrument, and it'll play.
Same thing in real estate.
Totally weird. Like, why am I in real estate? I don't know. Real estate because it's a people thing, right? And really is a people thing. And then that people thing for me, it's like the more I make it about the people and the more I can add value to people, the more money I make. So you are paid in direct proportion to the amount of value you deliver. There's a reason I can get $4 for an electric bass guitar. People are willing to pay it, right? Are there people making 7 and 10 and 12 and 14 for them? Sure, absolutely. But, for me, when I do and the skill set that I have and what I build and do, that I find is a good number. So do I want to have to sell 60 of those a year to make? No.
Then it's not fun.
I do pretty okay doing this job and I really like it. I wouldn't want to do that all day. So there's certain things that I like to do. Like I like to ride my bike, but I don't want to have to do it every day because I have to. It's when you're doing it because you want to, it changes everything.
Agreed.
That's why I like to see people get to that freedom moment where they're like, I don't have to trade time for money anymore. I have enough income coming in so that I don't have to do this, or I have enough saved so that I don't have to do this. That's that kind of tipping exit freedom point. That's when you have real true freedom, which is I do it because I want to, not because I have to. So how fast can we get you there? If we can get you there faster, your life is going to be way more amazing. It's going to be way more fun. Can you imagine what it would look like if I didn't need to make money and I just did what I can make the biggest impact with? To talk about 4.0, right? Nicole 4.0. You're already 2.0. You're already better than average, right? So it's like, how do you become that Nicole 4.0? And I think the key is finding the things that you're very passionate about. When you're very passionate about something, it's really hard. It's really hard to compete with somebody that loves it.
Yep. Agreed.
Super hard to compete with somebody that loves it.
Yeah. And you love what you do too. I mean, You've done the brokerage model, you've done the recruiting for, multiple locations, and now you're on a nationwide level. Measuring the growth at a disruptive brokerage.
Yeah, we jokingly, Michael Valdez was chief growth officer for a while, so we call him Mr. Worldwide. He's global, right? And he was living in Miami and stuff, so it's just kind of a joke. And I'm like, I'm Mr. Nationwide, but just the lower 48. Like, forget Alaska and Hawaii, I'm just 48. But I'm happy where I'm at. I think if you go to mantra, you want mantra. How's that for a mantra?
I can't read it.
Happy, healthy, wealthy, wise. It's backwards. So like when I'm looking at it here in a mirror, I can read it. This is my crappy handwriting backwards. It looks like Arabic to most people. And since I live by Dearborn, Michigan, they're like, is that Arabic? Like now it's my crappy handwriting backwards. Happy, healthy, wealthy, wise. And I literally had written that out and written that out and written that out and written that out. And it's like, you got to have that direction. So like in my mind, like if I wake up and my brain's going somewhere and then I don't want to go, there's like, I go back to, okay, happy, healthy, wealthy, wise. What does it feel like to be happy? Like, remember that happy thing. By the way, did you know that connecting to a happy thought actually unlocks much more potential in your brain? There's a guy named Sean.
I forget what the statistic is, but we typically feed ourselves like something almost like 70% negative thoughts throughout our day.
Yes.
That's how challenging it is to feed ourselves positive thoughts. It's like only about a fraction.
Yes. See, I think a lot of people are like, well, how do you stop that? So I don't have one here. Normally I've got one. It's probably behind my computer here. You'll see me wearing a rubber band. Everybody's like, whoa, that's a nice bracelet you got there. I will be wearing a rubber band. And then I call it the elastomeric behavioral modification device. Like every time you have a thought that doesn't serve you, take that puppy and pull it out to about here, let it go. Gives you a nice little snap, right? So two things happen. Number one, it's giving you an intentional break, a built-in intentional break. And then the first time you have a bad thought and you like snap that thing, the next time you start that thought process, your brain automatically goes, no, don't go there. And it starts to develop. You're like, dang it, snap. By the third or fourth time, as soon as your brain starts wandering onto that thing, it literally starts. Listen, corporal punishment for kids, you guys can go a million different directions on that, all stuff. It's like, if you can physically tie something to avoid to something that you did, it is the same exact thing. It's very, very simple. It's a simple little snap. And what happens is it changes a chemistry experiment going on in your brain. This is just chemistry, right? Yep. So how do you stop that chemistry from running buck wild with you? That little snap of pain puts your brain in a completely different place. It's also like have you heard of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method?
I mean, it sounds familiar, but I don't know how you're applying this. So
there's a couple different ways you can apply it. So what happens is when something is happening to us, or we're starting to go out of control, or you're starting to spin out, or you're stuck on something and you're having an emotional response, counting backwards from 5 will help for a couple different reasons, right? So you can literally do this out loud. You can do this with your hand too. Is it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or you can count it backwards, which is harder to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. By the process of doing that, it's taking your brain out of the emotional reaction phase and it's putting it in the logical thinking phase, because now I have to count, and the counting actually takes a different part of my brain than just emotional part of my brain. So what happens is I'm taking myself out of this uncontrollable and I'm putting myself in much more controllable. Because here's the thing, there are times when I will react with that emotion thing engaged. Completely different verbiage pops out of my pie hole than if I just go backwards. So somebody take a deep breath. Well, the process of thinking, take a deep breath, and the process of making your body physically do.
That's my new super tool that I never used to do, and I didn't realize it till I was pregnant. I was working all the time, driving around, and my acupuncturist was like, "You need to breathe. Like, you need to take a deep breath. You're in stilettos. You're 9.5 months pregnant. Like, you're healthy, but like." You need to breathe. And she's just like, you got to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And so we determined that when I'm driving around, because coming from Southern California, I was on the road all the time. Every time I stopped at a light, I breathe. In my nose, out my mouth, and I make sure I hear it. And it's something that I carried with me. My youngest daughter is now almost 10. Yeah. And I learned it about 10 years ago. And my husband's super big exec, a lot of stress on a lot of meetings, super chill guy. And when I noticed he's kind of like, I make him sit and I make him breathe, and he can remember exact moments when we've done it. And I'm always just like, just breathe.
Yeah.
Like, you have to change that mental.
It's everything. And so my wife has a PhD in natural medicine.
I love it.
Studied it, just trying to figure whatever it took. Literally spent 11 years working on this thing to get, and actually has a PhD, and just to try to figure out like what else is out there. Modern medicine is not helping her situation. So like, why do I do this? I never want to have to say, no, we can't afford to do that. If it's something that makes sense, and I don't care what we got this new plate thing that you stand on, and it vibrates all the way through, like bone marrow and everything. Google it. It's freaking weird stuff. Just got that. It's like $30. Like, buy it. Just buy it. Don't even think about don't think about it twice. Just do it. Right. But it's that being able to make that move forward. So she's big into meditation. She got big into meditation because just the not being able to do what you want with your body and your body not cooperating. Can you imagine the mental that is, right?
It's like, so yeah, it's torture.
So it's that meditation of getting into that space and getting that quiet space and being able to release the judgment on yourself and release the judgment on everything else around you, right? And so I'm not really into meditation that much. You could probably be surprised by that. I don't look good in Lululemons, so I'm out.
Hard to sit still. It's hard to sit still.
It is.
I just like, there's a baseline right there. It's really hard to sit still. Everybody finds their way of meditating. There's different ways of finding calm therapy.
I can meditate running. I can meditate riding a bike. I can meditate while I'm walking, but sitting still in one position meditating does not make any sense.
High garden.
I found the perfect mantra for non-meditation people, and I showed it to my wife, and she started laughing so hard she almost threw up. It goes like this. I'll show it to you. You'll love it. Your husband might get a kick out of this one. Okay. Breathe in the good, breathe out the bullshit.
All it is. Fact.
All it is, right?
Fact.
For me, it's like, all right, breathe in the good. So that has become my mantra. And I know it was just funny at first, but literally I find myself doing that a lot because it's enough to be like, okay, it's fun and funny, but it puts it back into perspective. This probably really isn't that important. It's not that important. If 10 years from now, I look back and I'm like, that was so stupid to be mad about that. It was so stupid we were worried about that. Most of the things we're worried about and our indecision comes from the fact that we're not really clear on what we want. And the more clear you get on what you want, the easier it is to make every decision in your life.
Exactly.
Should I do this or shouldn't I do that?
And you're just fed bullshit all day long. So don't listen to all the static. Stay clear on your goal. And that is like the best thing to.
Yes. Stay 100% focused on your goal. What other people want for you and think for you is irrelevant, right? I get people all the time like, Russ, you should do this. You should do this. You should do. This is what I want. This is what I'm doing. This is the direction I'm going. Nothing's going to let me deviate from it. And every once in a while, somebody says something like, oh, wait a minute, that is kind of interesting. I might want to look at that. Right? But for the most part, I'm like, does this head me towards what I want? And what I want isn't stuff as much as it's the feel, right? It's the feel. Am I making a difference? I'm doing this because I love it, because I feel like I can make a difference in the world. That's way more important to me than the money component. Don't get me wrong. We do okay.
I got there. And this work hard, small large has like blessed me in so many ways because of that. We do our vision mapping and people call me throughout the year and like, Nicole, I did it. Or Nicole, like I wouldn't have done this if I didn't do my vision map. It is priceless. What it's done for my children. This was our family's mantra, and they used it in their friend groups and in their life, and it's priceless.
You know, it's interesting because the way our culture is built is unique. It's very unique, and a lot of people don't realize how unbelievably unique it is to be able to look at people and smile. As you know, in the country of Moldova, if you smile at other people, they think there's something wrong with your head. I got a friend of mine that's from Moldova. She's like, bro, I'm like, how did you do in Moldova? She's like, not very good. Everybody thought I was special. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because I smile at everybody. And I'm like, well, why? What's the problem? She's like, no, if you smile all the time, the Eastern European Bloc countries, Romania and so forth, if you smile a lot, they think you're mentally handicapped. And she's like, oh yeah, they all thought I was messed up. It had to be so. But she's like, part of why she left, it's a very stoic people. So even something as simple as being thankful that you can smile and that it's appreciated in this world. That's brilliant. We are so blessed. Do we have some stuff that's messed up? Yes. Don't even get me started on politics. We've got some stuff that's messed up, right? We need better choices. We need D, none of the above. Let's go back to the wagon. We got 380 million people in this country. We could do better. Okay. So with that said, we still have the ability to smile. We can choose our reaction to all of it.
Our reaction will create a different outcome too, because how you react to things totally impacts the outcome. And so I believe that 100%. And I'm not afraid to change. Like I electively made changes throughout my career, you know what I mean, that have gotten me to where I'm at, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I love the fact that there's change ahead that we don't really control. Yeah. And guess what? We're like one of the last industries to evolve and be disrupted. It's going to happen. And technology is going to do that. And I'm lucky that you and I are both at a brokerage that is totally at the forefront for technology in our industry.
Well, I think more so, and there's some things that I get to see that you don't get to see from the leadership perks. I'm in a slightly different spot, so I get to see some things that you don't get to see. And the level of leadership and level of engagement and the level of drive to be a thought leader on this and be the one standing up and saying, guys, we don't know everything, but we do know this. And based on that, you got to be doing this and heading this direction. So when July comes, you are ready to rock and roll. That's something we are doing an extremely good job of. I was at a meeting earlier today, and they're literally was talking through, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, and here's some. And there's other brokerages that are looking at our leadership and our brokerage saying, we need what the heck do we do with this? Like, we don't know for sure how it's going to end, but we know the direction we can go now. We're telling that story. And that's huge. So we need to be
that's where brokerages can partner with us. Like, you don't need to go it alone.
You don't have to go.
We don't need to go it alone. We don't all need to carve the same path. in this time of evolution in our industry. And that's really powerful.
I sent our buyer toolkit, our brand new buyer toolkit, to an agent outside of our company on purpose, knowing full well that they were struggling and stuck and didn't know what to do. I'm like, just take a look at this. You could open the link, just double check. You could open the link, look at the link. This is what our people are saying. This is what they're doing. This is what they're showing. Share it with your friends. I don't want to see anybody suffer in this. So we can be a beacon in a crappy time, beacon in a horrible storm. That's what we're going to do from the top down. And by the way, all of the leadership is in alignment. We're going to be a beacon in this industry. Doing that, damn right we will. That's just good business. If your business isn't set up to win, your business is stupid. Set your business up to win. That's what it's for. So like we're setting it up to win, and we're going to win because of the way we're setting it up. But it's always add value first, give first, and then you'll get yours. It's not about get. It's about give. Knowing full well, the more I give, the more I'm going to get. Done. It's like Glenn Sanford, Michael Valdez, Leo Pareja, Carolyn Merchant, Brian Ellington, as you're seeing him, all five of the five top people in the company, all the same things. Like, let's give to this industry. Now's our chance to give to this industry.
Absolutely. I'm proud to be where I'm at, and I'm happy to have the experience I had to have myself know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To appreciate it.
If you didn't have the experience you had, you wouldn't know how great this was, right? And it's not for everybody. It's fine. Nobody's for everybody. Some people are watching this and be like, that Russ guy's a spaz. I don't want to listen to him anymore. Other people will be like, thank God somebody got enthusiastic about something for once.
No, they're going to watch it and be like, he's pretty straight to the point. Well, I never had to explain that simply. Now it makes sense.
I've been accused of being direct more than once. And I don't think I'm that direct, but apparently I am. Like, how else would you say it?
Save time, save energy, be direct.
Straight at it, right? Don't let your life suck. It's your fault that your life sucks. Do something different. Okay, maybe that's a little direct. But I say it because it's funny.
Yeah.
It makes
you like to laugh. And you like to make everybody around you laugh. So
it's some fun with it, right? I think one of the rallies that we're doing coming up, got a bunch of rallies going on in April, about a month and a half from now. And one of them is Wisconsin. So I've got as one of the executives, I'm going to be at the Wisconsin rally. And they're like, it's at a comedy club. Somebody knew somebody at a comedy club. I'm like, ooh. And just like 4 or 5 later, like, Russ, no. Can I just do like 5 minutes of stand-up for fun? Like just real estate related, no F-bombs. Can I do that? And they're like, no, you do not do that.
You're going to build it in somehow, I know. It's going to be like your icebreaker.
It's going to be a comedy show, regardless of whether they like it or not. Anyway.
Well, thank you for coming on and talking about your personal life, your hobbies, how you came to be our senior growth officer here for the nation. And really simplifying, how to be a good agent and how to be authentic to yourself, because that's really what success is. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing not 1, not 2, but 3 mantras, life mottos. So I got them on, there was 3 of them on your episode, but I appreciate you joining me. And like we say at the end of every single Work Hard, Smile Large podcast episode, work hard.
Large.
All right. Thank you, Russ. And that wraps up another incredible episode of the Work Hard, Smile Large podcast. I hope you enjoyed our journey today as much as I did. A big thank you to our amazing guest for sharing his story and insights. If you found inspiration in today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with friends, family, or anyone who could use a boost. Remember, your journey is unique and every step counts. Keep working hard and never forget to smile large. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. You never want to miss an episode. We have a lot more incredible stories and conversations lined up for this season. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep dreaming big, and as always, work hard, smile large.